Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2023 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Strike, the Founder and Festival Director, in conversation with the Director, Susan Perz, and Zoologist, Abbie Martin, who you will find out more about related to the film Saving Jaguars and Ourselves, which is part of our Free for All Shorts program, which starts September 25th and runs through October the 1st. Information about all of the Global Peace Film Festival programs can be found at peacefilmfest.org. And now let's welcome Susan and Abbie to the conversation. This is such an important film and subject, and so we're so glad that you can be a part of the festival and join us in this conversation.
Well, thank you for having us.
So yes, as Kelly said, we are delighted to have the film and to be talking to you now. So Susan, let's start out by telling us about the film, and then Abbie, if you can tell us about your role in the film.
So the story of the Pantanal wetland in Brazil is the Pantanal wetland is about 500 miles south of the Amazon rainforest. A lot of people don't know it exists. They don't know where it is, but it's the world's largest wetland, and it's bigger than Florida. And it's one of the most unique and beautiful places on Earth. It's very remote. It takes 4 hours to get there on dusty roads with 120 wooden bridges. And it's the only place in the world, and Abbie likes to say this, the only place in the world where wild jaguars roam free and people can watch them through ecotourism safely from boats on many winding rivers. So people with mostly African indigenous roots live here. They're in fishing and ranching, but ecotourism has provided jobs for local people and protected jaguars from illegal hunting. And so the story focuses on the amazing way that local people fought climate fires in 2020 and 2021. There was 4 years of extreme drought caused partly by the deforestation of the Amazon, but also climate change. And fires from Bolivia came over into the northern Pantanal, and the fires were extreme, nothing like anyone had ever seen before. And people were fighting fires with no equipment, no training. Government firefighters took 4 days to get there. So it's a very inspiring story about local heroism and courage and the desire to protect their homes and the wild jaguars that they love so much. So I'll stop there and let you, Abbie, jump in for a minute.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I am a zoologist, and I've been studying jaguar population ecology in this region for now the last 11 years. So this place has a really special place in my heart. I spend about 4 to 5 months a year here, searching for jaguars, and I have, a Pantanal family and lots of dear people here. And when this happened, the worst of the fires happened in 2020. And it's normal for Pantanal to burn, but these fires got out of control. And these friends and family, my Pantanal family, were contacting me with videos, and, and they didn't know what to do. They needed help. They couldn't get the governmental to help. They didn't know how to save the animals they were finding burned. So, I felt compelled to do what I could because it was COVID. The borders were closed. I wasn't able to come and physically help. So we had started a GoFundMe, and using the Jaguar ID project and our connections with lots of famous cinematographers and photographers around the world, we started to put this out through social media, what was happening. And we were able to raise quite a bit of money that we used to send for fire equipment and animal rescue and personal protection equipment. Mainly, a lot of the funding went for fuel to build these fire breaks, because at the time, these forest fires were so big, the only way to stop them or to use the rivers and the roads to contain them. So yeah, this is, and even though we shared this through our social media, it just seemed like nobody even knew really what was happening. So I think that this film and this story is really important to share, just because it finally lets people know, maybe because there was a language barrier with the Portuguese English. So I think this film is really nice in letting people know what actually happened and how this community came together to stop this fire and to heal after the process.
Well, thank you, Abbie. And Susan, how did you learn about this project? How did you get involved in filming it?
Well, I had traveled to the Pantanal in 2018 for a nature photography tour, and I had so much video after that trip that I wanted to do something with it. So one of the tour guides, Paulo Boat, introduced me to Abbie long distance, and we did a project together then, and I just had great admiration for her work and I've been very inspired by you, Abbie. It's a great example of women's leadership. You've been doing this 10 years. So during 2020, I, was watching Abbie's Instagram and seeing all these horrific, things coming up. And I just was floored that people were fighting fires, in street clothes with little water packs on their backs, like, this big, and little hoses. And then you see these massive landscapes that are just black, burned with billowing smokes coming up. So for 20 years or more, I've been doing small film projects for underserved communities. And I just felt like this story has to be told. People need to hear their stories, and people need to tell their stories of what this was like for them. And the Pantanal, I fell in love with it when I was there in 2018, because it is just, it's magical. It's like something you would dream could only exist. But it's, it's kind of a canary in the coal mine in a way. It's really a story of what's happening around the world. And Abbie, you were fighting fires in 2021. You were out there. You have archival footage and the archival footage came from Abbie, from the Jaguar Identification Project, and people who worked with her project. So that's one of the things that made this film possible. And when I talked to Abbie, I guess in 2022, and I wanted to interview you, and you said, why don't you come out on the river and interview me on the river? And then we talked about doing, I said I'd love to do a film about the fires. You said you'd always would really wanted a film to be made, and so that's part of how this film came to be. But some of the things that people had to do in 2020 and 2021 are incomprehensible in the United States, and yet with climate change, it's changing everything. And so I think this is a very inspiring story.
Oh, well, thank you, Susan. And Abbie, you are a zoologist first. So how have you found joining with a filmmaker and making these films helpful in your own work?
Working with filmmakers, really, by now I've worked with filmmakers from Taiwan, people from France. I've worked with people in the US, Canada, people from all over the world. And I am a zoologist. I'm not an actor or anything like that. But I think the story here, mainly the jaguar, it really draws attention. Everyone has like this love for big cats, and I also love big cats for sure. But I fell in love with the Pantanal mainly because of the vast numbers of birds. I came here as a tourist with my university in 2013. And in 3 nights, I had seen like 227 bird species. So someone who just took an ornithology, I was just like mind blown, and I knew I needed to find a way back here. I wanted to know more about Pantanal. Like Susan had said, nobody really knows about this place, even though now it's becoming more and more famous with this jaguar footage. People still don't really, they can't have a concept of it not being Amazon, because everything we hear about in Brazil and is Amazon this, Amazon that. But Pantanal is like the freshwater beating heart of South America. It's a nursery for all kinds of not only birds and endangered species, but fish and plants. And it's very underprotected. Only about 5% of the entire Pantanal, which is said is larger than Florida or 2 times the size of New York State. So it's really unprotected and it's not known. So I think of my work here with the Jaguars is a way to grab attention from normal people who love cats or want to come see big cats, but also bring value to the Pantanal, because if we want to protect the jaguar, we have to protect the Pantanal.
That makes a lot of sense. And as the title implies, if we want to save ourselves as well, we want to save the jaguars and save these precious habitats. And so, Susan, this part of the reason I was so attracted to your film is that a central mission of our festival is not only to provide people with windows into things that are happening around the world, but also to give people ideas about and inspiration about how they can change their own world or how they can make a positive effect on the world. And so when you made this film, Susan, what do you hope people will take away when they see it?
The Pantanal is affected by everything around it. So it's affected by the Amazon rainforest, which is 17% deforested and 38% degraded, which means, it's still not giving off the carbon. I mean, it's still not absorbing carbon the way it used to. The Amazon rainforest has been giving off more carbon than it absorbs since at least 2018. And we can't protect the earth from climate change without Amazon. And Amazon rain feeds the annual floods in the Pantanal. And so the river water has been down in the Pantanal, and the flood season has shrunk from 6 months a year to 3 months a year. So making those connections between our lives and the way that we live and how it disproportionately affects countries in the global south, like Brazil, like continents like Africa and South America, is really important. And 80% of the Amazon needs to be protected and restored by 2025. So deforestation is down by 60% under President Lula, but a lot more needs to happen. And a lot of our corporations are very involved in deforestation and funding fossil fuels. And the Pantanal is heating faster than most other places in the world from climate change, which is mostly driven by fossil fuel. So one of the things that I think, we don't realize that as everyday people, there are things that we can do that add up to big things. And one of those things is looking at our banks and changing our banks. So if we bank at one of the big banks, then most of those big banks are loaning money to fossil fuels and to corporations that deforest rainforests in really big ways. So if we just change our bank to a local bank or a credit union and change our credit cards, that can make a huge difference in defunding fossil fuels. Also, homeowners and car insurance, they insure fossil fuels and corporations that deforest. So again, changing those simple things to corporations that don't do that. And the website, Saving Jaguars and Ourselves website, has a whole take action place with links, and their greenfaith.org is an organization that they have people who will help you go through the website and figure out, is your bank funding fossil fuels or deforestation? Is your car insurance doing that? And I did that myself. I went through and talked with them, and they kind of hold your hand and help you look through the website and figure out, you know. And so I recently changed my car insurance. So these are simple things we can do. Also, some of the Pacific Island nations that are being swallowed up by the oceans have created a fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty that's for nations to sign, but individual people can sign it too. And that adds up. And that link is on the website. Also, there is a huge march happening, or marches happening all over the world, September 15th and 17th, about climate change. And one of the big goals is to ask President Biden and other world leaders to declare a climate emergency, because we're there. And again, that's where the context around the Pantanal is so big, because climate change is fueling some of the droughts, the droughts that are affecting the Pantanal. And those droughts are also making it harder for the Amazon rainforest to preserve its ecosystem. And because Amazon creates its own ecosystem, it cools both of the oceans, which is a big deal. Ocean warming is a big deal. And oceans create half the oxygen we breathe through plankton, which move north when the water gets too warm. And the oceans protect glaciers like the Thwaites Glacier, which is in Antarctica. So all of these things are connected, but we have power. And that's one of the things that I love the most about this film, is that it is solution focused. There are many more easy solutions that we can do, that are on the website, and it's hopeful, because we do have power, and that's exciting to me.
That's really fantastic, and so important, and so important to let people know that the little actions that they can take are not so little after all. So you have really described in detail what people can do. Is there anything more they can do to support the film and your work? And Abbie, is there any way to support your work directly that Susan has not mentioned? And finally, what's next for both of you?
One of the most important goals of this film for me is to make a difference. So it would mean the most to me for people to go on the website and look at some of the things that they can do to make a difference. There is a place where people can donate to help fund the feature film. That's the next thing for me, and I am working on the feature film now. And my plan is to do a major impact campaign all over the United States about these very actions that we can take, and working with environmental organizations to really turn that web page into a PDF where people can check off, different actions that they've done. And, so you don't have to do it all in one day. It's not overwhelming. And one of the things, when I was there, and Abbie did the interviews in Portuguese, because I don't speak Portuguese, and we asked people, what are some of the things that you would like to see come from this film? And one of the things that came out of that was having a medical clinic for people in Porto Jafre, which is where we were, or where Abbie is, because they have no medical clinic there, and people have to go 4 hours over dusty, bumpy roads that sometimes get, with the bridges that get washed out, or, and it's a long way to not even have a nurse, locally. So if this feature film particularly can earn some money, I'd like to see it go to that, besides trying to help make a difference So those are my thoughts. And Abbie, can you also talk about, of course, there's Panthera Brazil is where we both stayed, and that's where Abbie stays every year. And
Right
they
now.
do, yeah, that's where you are now. And
Yeah.
that's, you know, the links to Abbie's organization, Caroline Lichtenberger, does the giant otter project, and giant otters are endangered. There's a lot of endangered species there and 5,000 different species of wildlife. But those links are on the website too. So I'll let you kind of take it from there, Abbie.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a really good job at letting people know how they can help, those small little things. Like, I want to check my bank now and my car insurance, you know, if I can do that. I mean, I'm dedicating my life with these conservation efforts here on the ground every day, in the heat and the sun and the rain and everything. But and now that I know I can do a little bit more, this is really nice. Thank you so much for sharing those things. I think a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, I would just add, you know, support conservation efforts, you know, research and support organizations that are working to protect fragile ecosystems like the Pantanal and the Amazon. You've mentioned they're all connected. So if you can do some little support, big or small, volunteer, whatever it is, give a photo, just talk about it, you know, educate others, share the knowledge that you gain from this film with your friends and your family, raise awareness about the Pantanal and all these challenges that we talk about in the film, and support sustainable practices, you know. I mean, like I said, I think Susan, you did a really great job at letting us know how we can make a difference after this film. And I hope that that we see some of these things that we want to accomplish with this film happen.
Thank you, Abbie, and thank you, Susan. Your work together, you know, we really are so appreciative of your time and your, you know, inspirational message. And so thank you.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
for having us.
Of course. And thank you to everyone who watched today's conversation. Really urge you to go and visit the website, savingjaguarsandourselves.com. That's all one word, savingjaguarsandourselves.com. As Susan had mentioned, there are a number of resources that you can explore so that you can take action and make your, as Nina had said, it may seem like a small action, but it will actually have pretty wide ripples and important effects. So please check out that website. And please also go to peacefilmfest.org to see more details and events for our upcoming festival work. The in-person screenings begin September 19th and run through September 23rd. That is followed by our virtual programming, which begins September 25th and ends on October the 1st. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next Glow.